the one question you should ask yourself before you ask someone to marry you, really clear, is can I live with this person in a pandemic?
Yeah.
Where I can't go to the gym, I can't go play golf. Can I live with this person in a pandemic?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the One Percenter Podcast. Sam and I have an amazing guest for you today. We're excited. He is one of the most profound and famous psychiatrists. He has doctored some of the people you guys know: Justin Bieber, Logan Paul, Ed Milet, who we've had on the show. He's done over 160,000 brain scans.
That's incredible.
He's the author of The End of Mental Illness, guys. He's a double board certified psychiatrist. We're incredibly honored to have you. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel Amen, for being on the show.
Wow. I mean,
Thanks for having me.
160,000. I mean, we were just talking before we got on. I haven't done 160,000 of anything, and I'm so fascinated by your work because, I'm always looking for ways for me to transform myself, to become better, physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, and obviously with you have dedicated your whole life on mental illness and peak performance for the brain.
If you want to be better at anything, you have to have a brain that works right. And that's what most people don't understand. I got to scan Tony Robbins and we did a Facebook Live and I said, you teach software programming on how to be successful. But if people have hardware problems, they're not going to be able to run the program. Your brain is involved in everything you do, how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. It is the organ of learning, loving, and every decision you make. And success in anything in life is based on a series of decisions, but if the decision maker doesn't work right, it's hard for you to be your best.
Yeah. So I'm curious because there's so many ways for this conversation to go. There's so many intricacies of the brain. So why don't you start with, you've done over 160,000 brain scans. So why don't you tell us some of the common issues that you find in a lot of people and how to correct those things and just daily practices for brain health that we could be doing?
So we do a study at Amen clinics. I have 8, soon to be 9 clinics around the country, where we look at the brain with a study called SPECT, S-P-E-C-T. And SPECT looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. And it basically shows us 3 things: good activity, too little, or too much. And then our job is to balance it. If it works too hard, we want to calm it down, as it often does in post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. Or if it doesn't work hard enough, often when people have had traumatic brain injury or ADD, we want to stimulate it. So the first strategy is how do you know unless you look? And so coming to one of the clinics and getting a scan, it does so many things for people. One, they fall in love with their brain. So you ask for practical strategies. Strategy number 1, something I call brain envy. Freud was wrong. He was about 2.5 feet too low in the body. I've not seen one case of penis envy in the 40 years I've been a psychiatrist, right? It's like, that's not the organ that you need to be concerned about. It's the 3 pounds of fat between your ears. Love your brain. And I have little tiny habits for all the strategies. And the tiny habit for love your brain is before you do anything, before you eat anything, drink anything, just ask yourself, is this good for my brain or bad for it? And if you love yourself, if you love your mission, if you love your family, you're going to start making better decisions because you only want to do things that you love that love you back. And so it's a relationship with food and with drink and with the behaviors you engage in. So that's the most important thing. is know your brain, love your brain, and then know what to avoid and what to do. So I horrified myself a couple of years ago when I went, oh, you can summarize all of your work in 3 words: care, brain envy; avoid anything that hurts it; do things that help it. And you just have to know the list.
Okay. Okay. So why don't you talk to us about, some of the things that you do every single day, because
Some of the best practices
Yeah.
for brain health.
yeah, exactly.
So my day always starts the night before.
Me too.
If you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And I created this mnemonic with my team called Bright Minds. And so, for example, B is for blood flow. That's why exercise is important. R is retirement and aging. New learning just has to be essential. I is for inflammation, which is why omega-3 fatty acids. The S in Bright Minds is sleep. If you sleep less than 7 hours at night, you have lower overall blood flow to your brain, which means you're going to make more bad decisions.
That explains everything.
Not sleeping turns off 700 health promoting genes. And so my day starts by getting in bed by 10, turning off the gadgets, and I have a ritual that I really like. So for me, I say a prayer, and then I go, what went well today? And I just review my day from a positive standpoint, because what it does is, 1, it makes me happy. 2, it sets my dreams up to be more positive. And REM sleep, or dream sleep, has been found to be the most restorative sleep. And so I start my day the night before by getting good sleep. And then as soon as my feet hit the floor in the morning, I go to myself, today is going to be a great day. Why? Because then my mind will find why it's going to be a great day. And, we're week 20 now of the pandemic. I've done it every day. And it's been stressful. I lost my dad. My mom had COVID. I run, a clinic. One of my employees was on a ventilator. So it's not been without stress. It's also not pie in the sky thinking, because the don't worry, be happy people die the earliest from accidents and preventable illnesses. But it just sets the day up right. And with the 3 kids in my house, at breakfast, we go, so why is your day going to be a great day? Just to get your mind going in the right direction. And then my wife created this very special decaf cappuccino drink I make for her, because it's my way of telling her I love her, because when she's happy, I'm so much happier. And then I start my work day with huddles with my teams. So every day we meet for 15 minutes. What'd you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? Where are you stuck? How can I help? And I do it while I'm walking. So I get 40 minutes, because I have 2 huddles every morning, walking like you're late. Because people who do that head to head against antidepressants been found to be equally effective. And so then my day goes on with that question: is this good for my brain or bad for it? And when I first scanned myself 30 years ago, it wasn't good, because I played football in high school. I had meningitis as a young soldier, and I just had bad habits. And I'm a double board certified psychiatrist for more than 30 years. And I didn't care at all about my brain when I started looking at it. I mean, how stupid is that? But once I fell in love with it, my brain has actually aged backwards. And I think that's what everybody really wants. You don't want an older brain, because you're more likely to forget things, to repeat yourself, to say stupid things, and get depressed.
So do you think that, with, some precautions, we can eliminate, or at least reduce, diseases like Alzheimer's?
So I'm pretty convinced that we can do a much better job of preventing Alzheimer's disease. All these drug companies, there's been over 2,000 medication trial failures. And the reason for that is there's not one road to Alzheimer's disease, there's 11 of them. We talked about bright minds. And it's a lifestyle disease, sort of like obesity, diabetes, heart disease. And when we think of it that way, then we get much more serious about diet, about exercise, new learning. And you asked me about my day. I have a big supplement tray. And in the morning, I take a brain-directed multiple vitamin. I have a supplement company because I don't want to just drug my patients' brains into submission. I believe first do no harm, use the least toxic, most effective treatment. So we make something called Neurovite Plus, it's super brain-directed multiple vitamin, omega-3 power, because omega-3 fatty acids, did you know 98% of the population is low in omega-3 fatty acids, and they make up about 25% of your brain cell membranes?
So I have a question for you regarding omega-3. What omega-3 falls into, an EPA and DHA. Out of EPA and DHA, would you agree that DHA is more important for the brain than EPA, or they're both as important?
Absolutely not. So that's a myth that for people who struggle with depression, DHA doesn't help at all, but EPA does.
Wow.
For people who have ADHD, DHA doesn't help at all, but EPA does. And for people who are anxious or worried about their memory, DHA seems to be better. And what I really like in omega-3 power, the one we make, 60% EPA, 40% DHA, 2 capsules, a big slug. It's got 1,440 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and you need to take 6 of the Costco brand to equal 2 of ours. And people go, oh, I'll get a Costco, it's inexpensive, but it may not be best to really move. Everybody should have, I call it an omega-3 index. It's a simple blood test that goes, well, what's my omega-6 to omega-3 ratio? Should be 3-to-1, omega-6 to omega-3. I did a study on 50 consecutive patients, Damon clinics. 49 of them had suboptimal levels.
Yeah.
And so we should do better. I'm a huge fan of vitamin D. You should know your level and optimize it. And when the pandemic started, we just came out with a new supplement called Happy Saffron. That saffron has 21 randomized controlled trials for depression, but it also helps with PMS, sexual function, and memory. And I'm like, okay, I'm taking this. Given the chronic stress that was headed our way, I wanted something to just help. And our first 4 testimonials from women, one of them said Viagra for women, because as opposed to most antidepressants, which decrease your sexual function, saffron, also curcumin and zinc in the product, enhance it. And I'm a fan of people being able to get together, because, the one question you should ask yourself before you ask someone to marry you, really clear, is can I live with this person in a pandemic? Yeah. Where I can't go to the gym, I can't go play golf. Can I live with this person in a pandemic? And, gratefully for me, the one I'm with, I can live with her in a pandemic. But I said, 9 months from now, babies are going way up because people have more time, and divorce is going way up because they won't be able to answer that question in a positive way.
Yeah. One of the things I love that you talk about so much is you talk about that lifestyle change. And so many people rush to just, hey, what can I get prescribed? What can I get medicine wise? But you really want to change the life.
Yes.
You want to make them have a healthy life, not just like you said, bring the brain to submission. You want to increase that healthy life. So my question is what do you think that a lot of people are doing wrong in their daily lives? You know, we have so many gadgets now. We have so much bad food. You know, how can
No exercise.
no exercise? Like, what if people did these one or two things? Like, what would they be able to do to hedge their bet that they'd be a lot better off?
Well, let me quickly go through these 11 risk factors. In the end of mental illness, it literally makes up half the book. And the idea behind the end of mental illness is these things aren't mental, they're brain. And when Justin Bieber, you know, you mentioned I've been his doctor, he came into my office because, you know, he's a superstar. And sometimes he'd do what I asked him to do, and most of the time he wouldn't. But he came into my office and he said, my brain is an organ just like my heart is an organ. If you told me I had heart disease, I would do everything you said. So what to do and what to not do. So just think of these 11 major risk factors. So bright minds, B is for blood flow. Low blood flow is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease. Well, what causes low blood flow? Caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, being overweight, having heart disease, high blood pressure. And if you have erectile dysfunction, you have blood flow problems. Because if you have blood flow problems anywhere, it means they're everywhere. And so know if you have the risk factor, how do you avoid it? You get rid of caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and exercise. It's critical. And it's not just any exercise. It's high intensity training with coordination exercises. So my personal favorite is table tennis because it's high intensity and it's got to get your eyes, hands, and feet all to work together while you think about this spin on the ball. People who do coordination exercises live longer than anyone else, right? Football, less long. Soccer, less long. Coordination exercises, tennis, badminton, table tennis, longer than anyone else. The R is retirement and aging.
What do you think that is? What does coordination do to make
it activates this really interesting part of the brain called the cerebellum. Cerebellum is the back bottom part of your brain. 10% of the brain's volume has half the brain's neurons. And when you do coordination, it actually sends signals to the rest of your brain to light up and be healthy. So it basically waking up your brain. So if you're just doing the same curls over and over again, your brain knows how to do that. So it's not new learning, not a bad thing, but it's not new learning. If you really want to wake up your brain, coordination can be so helpful.
Okay.
Our retirement and aging, when you stop learning, your brain starts dying. And it's the problem by playing the games where you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not learning anything new. So our gadgets are stealing our attention span. So learning a language, learning a musical instrument, a new hobby like gardening. During the pandemic, I mean, I really learned how to cook because, you know, you're not just going to restaurants anymore. The I is inflammation. And one of the blood tests you should get is your omega-3 index and also something called C-reactive protein.
Yes, I've done that.
When it's high, you have inflammation, which is often from a bad diet, from a processed food diet, and this thing we call leaky gut syndrome. If your gut's not healthy, your brain is not healthy. So that's why probiotics, which I take every day along with omega-3 fatty acids, help decrease inflammation, as does curcumins, one of the supplements I use, because without omega-3s and curcumins, my knees hurt because I hurt them playing football. And I don't hurt when I eat right, which for me, I need to just kill gluten and dairy because it hurts me. It hurts my joints. And curcumin and omega-3 fatty acids decrease inflammation. G is genetics. Know what you're vulnerable to. I'm vulnerable to heart disease and obesity. I don't have heart disease and I'm not obese. Why? Because I know that's my risk and I do the things to prevent them. I have a 67% chance, according to one study, of being obese, but I'm not. But I have siblings who are. Why am I not? Because I don't give in to the behaviors making it likely to be so. My wife can eat anything she wants and doesn't really gain weight. For me, I can look at Rocky Road ice cream and gain weight. And so when I decided to get healthy, I don't look at Rocky Road longingly. I look at it like it's the enemy, because it is. It's the enemy to my ultimate goals. You really got to get your mindset right around food. H is head trauma. If you go, hey, Daniel, single most important thing you've learned from 160,000 scans, mild traumatic brain injury ruins people's lives. It is a major cause of psychiatric problems, anxiety, depression, temper problems, bipolar disorder that nobody knows about because most psychiatrists never look at the brain. We have to do a much better job of protecting our brains. And the people listening, I'll go, have you ever had a head injury? And your first answer is no. And then I'm like, well, are you sure? Have you ever fallen out of a tree, off a fence, dove into a shallow pool, been in a car accident, had a concussion playing sports? And you cannot believe the number of people go, no, 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 no. Oh, when I was 7 years old, I fell out of a second-story window. Do you think that counts? 40% of the people that come to Amen clinics had a significant brain injury before they came. 58% of the homeless.
Does that linger, the effect of a brain injury that long ago?
Yeah.
Not for everybody, right? For some people, the brain has many healing mechanisms, but that injury when you were 3 could actually negatively impact the rest of your life. And people just call you a bad person, or they say you have character problems or personality problems. Well, when we look at the brain, I did the big NFL study when the NFL was having trouble with the truth about traumatic brain injury in football. And the short answer is yes, playing football is a brain damaging sport. Stop lying about it, it is. But what most people don't know is 80% of our players get better when we put them on a rehabilitation program. Basically, this Bright Minds program with high doses of omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, and a brain boost. We make something called Brain and Memory Power Boost. I mean, we're so excited. And that's the big message of my life is your brain can be better, and I can prove it. The T is toxins. So many things are toxic to our brain. Do you live in a mold-filled home? Do you have a toxic job like firefighters? Have you had general anesthesia? That can hurt your brain. Have you been exposed to mercury or lead? Toxins. And alcohol is not a health food. The American Cancer Society came out just a few weeks ago. Our most popular blog ever. I wrote it. It's called I Told You So. Because ever since I started looking at scans, alcohol is not a health food. We have to stop it. It is directly toxic to your brain, particularly your cerebellum. So not only decreases your coordination, it decreases your thought coordination. You get confused, which is why when people drink too much, they say stupid things. Alcohol increases the risk of 7 different cancers and is directly toxic to the brain. So I'm not a fan of moderation. I'm a fan of, you probably shouldn't drink. I have a sister that owns a winery, so we have interesting conversations. Less is better. The M, or mind storms, that's abnormal electrical activity in the brain I talk about, which is why you should decrease sugar, because sugar perpetuates that. I is immunity and infections. I had no idea how prophetic that would be. Know your vitamin D level and optimize it. Your best defense against COVID is your immune system. N is neurohormone disorders. So no, and Sam, I can't believe the number of young men who have low testosterone, mostly because they have toxins, too many toxins in their body. But you should know it, measure it, and optimize it. Too high is bad because too high goes with an increased libido with no empathy, which is the prescription for divorce. But too low, not only do you have problems with your strength, but with your memory, with your mood, with your motivation and your sense of joy. So testosterone, very important, as is thyroid and other hormones. D is diabetes. We live in an overweight society. 72% of us are overweight. 42% of us are obese. I published 3 studies. I have a brand new study coming out on 35,000 scans. As your weight goes up, the physical size and function of virtually every part of your brain goes down. And that should just scare the fat off everyone. So eating right, exercising, taking care of your blood sugar and your weight, and then S is sleep. So I know it's sort of a long answer on what's the 1 or 2 things, but the one thing is it's good for my brain or bad for it. If we had to put it into 3 things, love your brain, avoid anything that hurts it. That's sort of a high level list, and then do things that help it.
It's so true though, but I feel like, we, take care of everything. We go to the gym, we take care of your legs, you take care of it. Nobody ever takes about, let me take care of my brain. Without brain, nothing else works. So this profound, is something that we just take for granted.
I'm curious, you talk about in your book, The End of Mental Illness, and I think I've had trouble with anxiety, not me personally, but I've known people who have. And one thing you talk about is the ants, but you also talk about what I've seen is it's a lot of serotonin, and it's a lot of serotonin deficiencies that lead to that. So how do you know if it's maybe I'm just getting in my head too much, maybe I'm just worrying and that's my personality type, or maybe it's something chemical?
We actually have a free brain health assessment people can take and know what type of brain they have. So are they balanced, spontaneous, which is generally low dopamine, persistent, those are our worriers, low serotonin, sensitive, can go with depression, or cautious, more anxious, that I think low GABA. So we'll tell you what your type is in about 6 minutes, brainhealthassessment.com, and then go, well, these are supplements or even medications to consider. And in my mind, I'm always going to supplements first, unless perhaps someone's suicidal or they're psychotic, then I'll use medication first. You're low in serotonin if you worry, if you get stuck on negative thoughts or negative behaviors, if you tend to hold grudges, if you tend to be oppositional or argumentative, like as soon as your partner says something, you start arguing with them without actually hearing them out, your serotonin may be low. If you tend to be sad. So it's the looping where you might be someone who holds grudges for like 20 years. My dad had that. I mean, if you made him mad, he'd probably be mad for a year about you. And when I finally scanned him, I wanted to scan him, and he always goes, no, 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 because he was a no, no, no sort of person. He had one of the hottest cingulates. That's this area of your brain that causes you to get stuck on things. And giving him a little serotonin really helped him a lot.
So you guys actually manufacture and make these supplements yourselves, right?
We do. And, we see about 7,000 patient visits a month. And initially when I went, first do no harm, let's use not just be reps for the pharmaceutical industry, what's really good for the long-term health of your brain. I just send people off to the health food store. But the more I learned, the more I wanted to create our own line of supplements. People can learn about them at brainmd.com. And I'm just so excited about sort of natural ways for you to nourish and help your brain.
Now, I'm very excited. I mean, I'm very excited. I want to come to a clinic. I want to come to clinic. So tell me, how this procedure works. I make an appointment. What are the steps that I go through, and what's the cost of it?
So when people come to see us, it's generally for two reasons. One, either they struggle with anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar disorder, and the simple things they've tried have not worked. Or they get the concept, with a better brain comes a better life, and they want to know, how's my brain working and what can I do to make it better? And so they'll call. People go to amenclinics.com. They can either fill out a form or call the call center. And so the first thing we'll do, we'll make sure they're just appropriate for us. And when we evaluate someone, we take a really detailed history. So you fill out the equivalent of about 25 pages of information, because we don't make diagnoses just from scans. We want to know the story of your life. And then when they come to the clinic, we generally do 2 scans, one at rest, one when you do a concentration task. So you're generally at the clinic for 2 days. We do the history over the phone. We'll do a computerized neuropsych assessment for you. We actually measure 17 areas of cognitive function, coordination, processing speed, memory, focus, mood, anxiety. And then you meet with our physician who goes over all this information with you. And then we put together, okay, here's what we think's going on. Here are your strengths. Here are your vulnerabilities. Here's the plan to get a better brain, a better mind, and a better life. And the cost for all of that is just about $4,000. It also includes the first follow-up cost. And we're not just an evaluation center. Once we see people, we keep them. And most of the cost is up front, but we want to help your depression, no question. But in the process, we want you to fall in love with your brain and ultimately prevent trouble, which could be 30, 50, even 70 years later. We just want you to become, we call it a brain warrior, someone who's armed, prepared, and aware to win the fight of their life, which ultimately is for the health of your brain.
Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, I'm there, but I'm requesting one thing. I want to be seen by you. We'll talk about that later. I want to blog it. I really do. I really want to blog it. I want to make a blog of how this happened, man. This is amazing stuff, amazing, fascinating stuff. And I want to congratulate you for, realizing that this is a long-term thing. You're not putting a Band-Aid over something by just giving them some drugs right now to mask it. You're looking at it long-term from a holistic view first. And as you said before, if something, somebody has some serious issues, then you bring in medications. But you're looking at long-term health and long-term results, not just putting a Band-Aid over something that can be fixed.
Well, it's so important. This is many mental health issues are lifestyle issues. And if you just want medicine, but you don't want to fix things like your diet, your relationship, killing the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that run around your head, it's just not very fulfilling, and it's not very effective. The outcomes in psychiatry are no better than they were in the 1950s. And that should horrify people. That since I've been a psychiatrist for 40 years, as a profession, we've gotten worse. We've not gotten better. We've basically become pharmaceutical reps. And, I used to have, when I was trained, we'd have an hour a week with our patients. And yes, we do their medication, but also their psychotherapy, and really get involved in their lives. And when managed care came in the early 1990s, psychiatrists turned into 15-minute med check doctors. And I hated that. And at that point. You know, I just completely changed my practice. Like, it's not what I want to do, and it's not really within the best interest of my patient.
Yeah. One thing I'm curious about is focus. I'm very susceptible to distractions.
I'll second that. And everybody here in this room will second that.
Yeah. And so, other than coming in for a brain scan, what are some of the common things that you see like leading to that problem, and what are some things that I can fix that? Because I'm the notifications, I see something walk by, like I'm very susceptible to distractions. How can I combat that?
So in the book, let's see if I can find it quickly. I have a chapter on mind medicine versus nutraceuticals. And so one of the questions you want to ask yourself with distraction is, do you have ADD? And, and the 5 hallmark symptoms: short attention span, not for everything, but for everyday things like schoolwork, homework, paperwork, chores, email, things like that. Short attention span, easily distracted, like you're talking about, tend to be more disorganized. So if you look at your room, your desk, your book bag, procrastination, you tend not to do things until somebody's irritated at you, and impulse control things, where you may say something that you really shouldn't say, or do something that's really not in your best interest.
We got 6, bro. 5 out of 6, man. I think you're the poster child.
And if you have ADD, and it's very common, one, getting a scan is a great idea, because we'll go, so which of the 7 types, for all psychiatric issues, we go say, so what type do you have? Depression isn't one thing. Depression is sort of like chest pain. It's got many different causes. Know the cause. And then, so know your type, and then do simple things. So a high protein, low carbohydrate diet helps with focus, and it helps with energy. We make a supplement called Focus and Energy that often can help. It's got rhodiola and green tea, ashwagandha. I'm also a huge fan of theanine for focus. If you have ADD, one, you need to have gadget management. So when you're trying to get something done, turn off your notifications, put it on airplane mode so you can actually get the work done, because Silicon Valley is trying to steal your mind. So like Kellogg's and Coca-Cola, they're looking for stomach share. It's a word they actually use. They're trying to get your money by how much of your stomach they can get. Silicon Valley, Apple and Microsoft and Google, they're going after mind share. How much can they steal your attention? We have to be really clear. In the End of Mental Illness, I talk about the evil ruler. And I'm not talking about President Trump. Whenever I say that, people go, no, I'm not talking about President Trump. I'm talking about corporations that steal your mind. And they do it by negative headlines and clickbait. And they do it purposefully to get your money. And we just have to be aware of the evil ruler strategies. And if you do all the things I recommend, so there's 11 things in this chapter for ADHD, do this before you do medication. And if they don't work, take medication. Because I've seen, for the right brain, not good for everybody, for the right brain, dramatically improves your life. And so medicine's not of the devil. It's a tool that can be very helpful.
Okay. Oh, wow. This is, yeah. I think you definitely need to start the supplements like right away.
Yeah. I'm going to amenclinics.com. I'm getting some. But can you touch on real quick ants, and how, especially right now, I feel like there's so much of that, and how people can just stay in that positive headspace and not be overcome by like you're saying, so much of those clickbaity headlines and negativity. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to turn off the news, because it's not the news. It's about stealing your attention.
Yeah.
a long time ago, I coined the term ants, automatic negative thoughts, the thoughts that come into your mind automatically and ruin your day. And when the pandemic hit for me, it was March 10th. And The End of Mental Illness had just come out March 3rd. And I was on a book tour, and there was a show in New York, the Mel Robbins show. We had scanned the host. They were going to do the whole show on my work, nationally syndicated television show. I was so excited. And I'm in my bathroom ready to go to the airport to go to New York when the producer called me and said, we're closing the studio. And part of me was glad because I didn't really want to get on a metal tube playing with COVID. But I wrote that night, mental hygiene is just as important as washing your hands. We need to disinfect our thoughts, kill the ants, not believe every stupid thing we think if we're going to survive and even thrive during the pandemic. So the tiny habit for ants is whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And ask yourself, is it true? Is it absolutely true? You should not believe every stupid thing you think. And I don't know if you, Sam, if you were good at talking back to your parents when you were a teenager. I was excellent, but nobody ever taught me to talk back to myself, that I don't have to believe everything that runs around in my head. If I get a thought like my wife never listens to me, which is a terrible thought, just write that down. And I'm like, well, is that true? And it's like, well, no, it's not true. I've written 14 national public television specials. I rehearse them incessantly, and she's listened to them. It's like, no, she listens to me. And my favorite part of the ant killing technique is take the original thought and flip it to its opposite. And so my wife never listens to me turns into, she does listen to me, which in fact is true, or I never listen to her, which is, oh, no, because, you know, I'm busy. And just developing these mental discipline habits help you be happy.
Yeah. I've seen it up close, you know. I mean, my mom has done stuff like that, my sister's done stuff like that, and they consume your content a lot, and they've seen that growth, and they've seen that progression, and helps with it. So definitely, guys, if you struggle with that, especially right now, write down whatever you're thinking, write down those 5 questions, guys, and it's going to work, you know.
Just read the book, man. Don't even, you know what, if somebody really wants to better their life, you know, just read the damn book. Don't write anything down. Don't, watch the podcast. If you can't read a book about your brain, you know, that controls everything in your life, and you want to better your life, and you can't read the effing book, excuse my language, but, you know, so obviously then, you know, you shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? So the man, you know, is double doctorate degree. You know, he's done 160,000 scans. He knows the brain inside and out. The brain controls everything. Read the damn book, people.
I am not a fan. I am not a fan. It decreases motivation. It decreases blood flow to the brain. It increases, if you're a teenager and you're smoking pot, increases your risk of psychosis 450%. This is a repeated study from Norway. And teenagers who smoke pot in their 20s have a higher incidence of anxiety, depression, and suicide. Why would you ever put something in your brain to decrease your function and your ability to control it? And CBD is just taking the supplement world by storm. So one of the components in the marijuana plant. And I'm just like, there needs to be a whole bunch more study. My mom was taking CBD. I mean, so from your mother, they're giving it to the dogs. It's like, come on, we need to be more thoughtful, have more study. There's other ways to feel well that don't require pollution.
Okay, so I know what you're gonna say about this, but I'm gonna ask anyway because I just did a trial because I'm all about trying different things and see how I can optimize my brain. And so, you know, there's these clinics now popping up, you know, it's ketamine clinics and NAD clinics, right? And last week, actually, we did a blog, and I went there and got an IV drip of NAD with ketamine. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm actually a fan of NAD. I think NAD can really help energize people and help with repair. It's one of the things Justin did that we thought was actually really helpful. You have to be careful with ketamine. Ketamine is a drug of abuse, and it's a club drug. It can cause you to dissociate. For people that are seriously depressed and nothing else has worked, there's some studies showing ketamine has helped, although the people I've sent, 10%, it was like a miracle, and 90%, it wasn't that helpful. And then people sort of get a little bit dependent on it. It's not the first thing to do. It's more one of the last things to do.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And I knew, going into it, I'm actually, surprised that you even say ketamine was actually good for 10%. I was expecting a shutdown totally on that when I told them, but I'm glad that, we talked about it. This is fascinating stuff. And I want to come to your clinic and do a blog and do a whole scan and see how I can improve my brain. I'm all about improving my brain. Right now, I'm fascinated with improving my blood profile and optimizing my blood profile. My HDL a year ago was 16.
Ouch.
And I now brought it to 47 after a year, just doing EPA fish oil. I've been doing niacin, and some other things and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actually very, very happy about that. And I know, part of brain function, you have to keep your arteries clean.
No question. That's the B in bright minds. It's blood flow. Yeah. Your blood's not flowing right, nothing will work right.
Yeah. And so, if people want to find out more about you, want to come to the clinic, can you tell them where to go, where to find everything out?
So amenclinics.com, amen like the last word in a prayer, clinics.com is just a great resource for them. If they want to know about the type of brain they have, brainhealthassessment.com. And my wife, Tana, and I, and Sam, maybe it'd be fun to have you guys on our podcast called The Brain Warrior's Way, where we arm people to take care of their brain and their life.
Hey guys, if you like today's episode, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel, leave me a review, and tag a few friends that you think can benefit from what we shared today. Really appreciate it. God bless.